Okay, great. Everybody, thanks for tuning in tonight. Dumb Money Media, veteran, former crew chief that worked on the C5 Galaxies is going to be joining us. He's also a founding member of the Silver Degen Club. We're also joined by Illuminated Ape, an excellent researcher um, who is going to be sharing with us information about the mint squeeze. This is kind of a silver squeeze 2.0, and what's happening this time is a much more achievable goal, a much more plausible goal is being looked at, and what that is to drain the mint. We are looking at purchasing 2023 Silver Eagles, and I am Brian with Mountain Beyond Entertainment. If anyone has any questions, feel free and type them out in the chat, and we'll be happy to speak about this with you. IA, if you'd like to give us a little rundown on how this came to your mind, what research you saw or came across that made you want to start this movement.
Well, in a nutshell, I'm pretty much the guy that has devoted his life to looking through the cracks of history, going all the way back, and try to piece together some sort of picture of why we are here today. And via, my due diligence and just doing it for fun, I started to look into sort of talking points that kept coming up in the general conversation of this industry. One particular one was the 480 or 500 ounces of silver going into every Tomahawk missile. I'm sure a lot of people would be familiar with that one. But I didn't really understand where it came from. I tried to look, to various influencers, blogs, videos on this topic, and they never really provided me a source. So they kind of got my noodles spinning, and I started to question the military's usages of silver, over the last 100 or so years, and I started to realize that there's been an insane amount of usage. For example, I was looking up the Patriot missiles. Although only 50 of them ended up being created, every single one of them had around 24,000 pounds of silver going into the batteries, plus the electronics that was able to source from old government military documents. And that just really spun this whole research out of control, until I realized that this military-industrial complex, the same one that seemingly, assassinated Kennedy for XYZ things that he was trying to get accomplished, it wields a lot of power. And based on the needs that I saw, it just basically was an idea that if we took away the silver that they had, they would be in kind of a rough position. So it came to be, how would I do that? Well, then I started to look into the U.S. codes, and I realized that the United States Mint, through 31 U.S. Code 5112E, states that they have to meet to the public's demand. And, some people are throwing up some FUD earlier in the conversation. I want to address that, particular law right now, and say that, the secretary has to meet demand. Meeting demand is a quantifiable metric that can be weighed. There's data from all these bullion dealers that sell silver, and it's quite easy to make the case of what demand really is for these coins. And if they're currently not following this law, like some people like to say in the community comments, the real problem here is no one's paying attention and no one's pushing them on that law. And part of the initiative of Drain the Mint is to bring awareness that the mint is seemingly not minting to the demand, but they're getting away with it because there's no public outcry for that topic. And then the second law that we're going to be using is U.S. Code 31511 B2, and that states that the mint has to pay the average world price as dictated by the most widely accepted commodity exchange. And just to translate that, is the most widely accepted commodity exchange would be the COMEX for America. If we were in Britain, it would be the LBMA. If we were in China, it would be the Shanghai thing. But it is an initiative to make the mint follow their own laws to meet the demand of the apes coming to drain their inventory. And they got to keep making it, and they got to get it from somewhere, and they got to get it from the COMEX. And we're gonna force price discovery through the government. And that's what Drain the Mint's in a nutshell all about.
Yeah, it's a brilliant plan. And my understanding is, you know, they'll be looking at the COMEX. They could also get blanks from the Sunshine Mint. And I do believe that's the only place they can get those blank planchettes.
Right. Well, they have a contract with the Sunshine Mint, and for whatever reason, the Sunshine Mint has some exclusivity to this. For some reason, again, I don't have these answers. If anybody can find these answers, I'd be amazed as to why the Sunshine Mint is the only qualified mint that can produce the quality that the U.S. Mint is requesting to make these planchets. But at the end of the day, the U.S. Mint has to be the one to purchase the silver off the open market and then give it to the Sunshine Mint in order to use that silver to then produce the planchets. So it's still the government who is having to produce this silver. You know, historically, they would be using the DLA, or the Defense Logistic Agency's national stockpile of silver, but both in 2002 as well as 2021, the government admitted in documents that this stockpile had been depleted, and via the law, they have to take it from the open market at spot price.
But that will never work. What are you talking about, IA? That plan can't work. The government doesn't follow laws. Isn't that what you've been hearing and I've been hearing the past 7 days straight?
Well, I've been hearing it all my life, and in some capacity from a lot of demoralized people that believe that the government is beyond reproach, but that's been, you know, disqualified in my mind so many times because various laws that, for whatever reason, maybe are politically charged, get held up in court for a long time. Yeah, the news cycle might make the drama about how this law got enacted, but usually it gets tied up in court for like 6 to 8 to maybe longer amount of time, and 6 to 8 months, and or longer to a year. And you know, that's really where the heart of America is, and with how things are played is in the court systems. And it really doesn't get any traction unless people are obviously both aware of the law and see somebody breaking it. So if eyes are on the mint at the time, or right now, every eye that we're trying to get should be focused on the mint, wondering what they're going to do in response to this initiative. And that's the way forward. You have to hold the people accountable to their own laws. Otherwise, we're going to fall into anarchy. We're not at the point of civil war yet. I see this as an opportunity for peaceful protests, lawful, peaceful protests. And you know, people say silver is worth $600 an ounce. They say it's worth $1,000. They say it's worth who knows, right? And there's a lot of what about the premiums right now? Oh well, I'm going to be buying 2023 Eagles because I believe in this. But if other people don't, that's up to them. I'm not going to force them, but I hope to change their mind over time.
So yeah, we would be looking at paying a premium for these Eagles, although you would be hitting the direct source. And if They're looking at potentially making 15 million eagles this year. This is something that's very doable. If enough people in the stacking community decided to engage in this, we would pull it off.
Very easily, in fact, because it's not so. The aspect of all this, so if it's a worldwide initiative to bring price discovery to silver, we're all sort of hitting different targets, like UK or Europe are going to be hitting the LVMA, North America is going to be hitting the COMEX, and this is just not efficient. Whereas the whole world can come together, buy U.S. eagles, because the laws don't say who can buy them, it's just the public. The public isn't specifically a United States public, where it would have specified that. So they have to meet the world demand for these coins, and the world is watching.
Absolutely. It would also just shed a lot of light on the silver situation, not just here in the U.S., but globally. And, it might kind of light the fire under, let's say, some butts in the Department of Defense to go ahead and start purchasing, in my opinion, seeing that the mint ran out.
Well, I think the mint and military-industrial complex and the government really work hand in hand in all of this. I feel like there's a lot of incentive for the military-industrial complex / the government, since it's sort of an empire and needs to maintain control globally of having the best military or armaments or munitions readiness in the world. So they're incentivized by a national security concern to make sure that silver is available so they can keep making bombs. And not to be political, but they're currently sending a lot of them over to Ukraine. And I just see all of those bombs as just individual bars of silver being transferred over to Ukraine to be blown up and never to be seen again. And I think that's just egregious.
Yeah, once they blow that up, it's gone. That good luck recovering any of that.
Not efficiently.
Definitely not efficiently. That's gone forever. But it's good. Brian, we did have a question. Do you want to keep those to later, or do you want to
we'll just roll with them?
Just roll with them as they come in?
Absolutely.
So do you want to do it, or do you want me to go on it? Either one.
You could do it. You could do it.
Okay. All right. I'm already looking at it. All right.
Yes.
How many American silver eagles need to be drained to drain the mint? One.
Okay. Well,
two. We did say that.
Definitely more licks to get to the center of a Tootsie Pop for sure, but it's really not that many when you consider how many billions of ounces are traded daily on the COMEX, right? So we're only looking, actually the numbers I saw the other day were more pointing towards maybe less than 11 million, but the projected numbers that I saw earlier in the year were 15 million. It's very hard to say, but it's definitely half than what's left in the registered column for the COMEX. And that's a direct attack. Not so much, I hate to say the word attack, because we're doing this as a protest, and we're not trying to hurt anybody in the process. We're just trying to make sure that laws and people are held accountable to those laws in a fair system. But it is a direct drain.
It's a completely legal thing that's happening as well. So it's not like anyone's doing anything out of sort.
Right. This can't even be considered to be market manipulation, like we're choosing a specific corporate entity to fix the market to everyone to like this corporate entity. It doesn't even like that because it's the government. We're buying government-issued dollars. We're just choosing for these dollars to be minted in silver.
Well, that's why when you're first bringing this up to us, and we were all looking at it, trying to hammer it out and stuff, and finagle with it and figure out ways to spread the message to other people so that they could look at it and vet it, look at the information, see from an objective, logical way, look at all the information there and see what to do with it. And when I was looking at making that video that described how this works in 2 minutes, we were all kind of consulting, looking at this, and we're trying to figure out what were the main players. So we have the Mint, we have the COMEX, and we have the bullion exchanges, the LCSs, everything that sells. And what I've always noticed when I go to LCSs and just the normal trends in just normal markets is a lot of people will sell when it starts getting high, like maybe they want to get a profit, or they sell when they need it. And a lot of those coins just keep circulating back and forth between bullion exchanges and online exchanges. And you pretty much, so there's like, thousands of targets there that you have to drain each one individually first for them to start buying more inventory from somewhere else. And who knows if they're buying from another from another, like, they could be buying from another retailer. Obviously they're going wholesale, but then you have to drain that wholesaler. And so before they even start pulling from the COMEX. So there's a lot of stuff that ends up just getting circulated back in the public where we normally are, the retail customer, on a daily basis and a yearly basis. And it does create a cycle where apes and LCSs are just kind of trading back and forth between each other. Now, when there's a lot of buying, obviously, eventually one of those shops will get drained and they have to pull inventory from their wholesaler. The wholesaler will pull it from the COMEX eventually. And then, then it's hunky-dory, and we are pulling from the COMEX that way. But why waste all that time? 2 years? Well, has it been 2.5 years now? The Silver Squeeze started? We've done a lot. I mean, the Silver Squeezes did a lot, and it's still doing a lot. But why are we going to stick with the plan that is still taking this long when we could just throw all our efforts at one target and finish this, like, right off the bat? there's no reason not to.
Exactly.
Yeah, we could get this done.
We're basically, sorry, so I'm sorry to interrupt, but I want to get this thought out. We're basically turning the government into a tightrope walker. They have this very narrow strip to balance on. And for any funny business, they're going to topple right over this way or the other way. They have to keep a complete balance, and the balance is maintained if they follow the law while everybody's watching. Otherwise, there becomes a loss in faith worldwide in the government, and the money of the government is basically faith-based. So if we damage the faith of the government, they're not going to like that. So they're sort of been placed in a rock and a hard place to either force the price discovery of silver, drain the COMEX for us, or break the law that they wrote themselves and beg the question in the market, what the hell are you doing? Why are you doing this? Is silver scarcer? What's going on? Yes,
I think that, I think that the idea that this is something that they could just gloss over and, act like it wasn't a big deal is incorrect. A point that you had brought up previously, I think, hits the nail right on the head. Once, if you were examining this in a court of law, and the Mint was to be backlogged on orders for years, that would be seen as not meeting demand. And I think that,
correct.
A general consensus, if you went around and just polled, 100,000 Americans, you would end up discovering that they agree with that. If the Mint has a backlog of years, which we could create, that would be seen as not meeting demand.
Absolutely, and that gets them into a very big pickle because either they have to blame the secretary for being terrible at her job and fire her, and then put somebody else in there as a big show of, to then start doing things correctly, or the government, I don't know if we can call this treason, but if the people that make the laws don't follow their own laws, I think that's technically treason.
Well, the reason they're not following the laws, sorry, Brian.
Go ahead.
I just want to get that out. The reason they're not following the laws is because the public isn't saying anything about it. Like there's no outcry. There's zero outcry. Like we don't count. The silver stackers, they don't count as
Yeah.
outcry because we live in a silver bubble, and we're in a small community, extremely small.
And plus, the community that we do have, community stackers, are also demoralized, and that's why we are stacking silver, because we are betting on the government to default on its loans and obligations and the dollar to hyperinflate in some capacities. But we're also sort of in la-la land in the most part about how the end game's going to be, where I think if we do this, we get to control the end game a little bit more closer to the chest rather than waiting for other people to tell us what's going to happen.
Yeah, and with the outcry, you get way bigger. Like there could be a lot more noise that we're doing because there is a lot of us. It's just that everyone's not focused on the same thing technically. Everyone's focused on different stuff. So the Silver Squeeze was a good rally call that made everyone go out and just start buying, which is good because you're supposed to stack a lot. If you don't have a core stack, you probably should get it. Not financial advice, not financial advisor, blah blah blah.
None of this is financial advice. We're just talking.
Right. We might want to be your financial advisors, but we're not.
Yes, we're definitely not.
What we do, how we view this.
But with enough of us, we can definitely. I mean, because there already is enough of us, but a lot of people, we're all infighting. Everyone has different targets and different ideas and stuff. But if everyone gets behind one message, which this is the most efficient way to do it with the Drain the Mint, then there will be an outcry, and it will work.
So in regards to, like, the number of stackers, what would your guys' guess be, like, in the United States? Like 1 million stackers? 2 million stackers? Less?
See, the whole problem with gauging that number is because so many people got involved with that last group that we all came out of, not even to air them at a promo here, but they came into the whole political spectrum and attracted a lot of people with the leaders' particular views on politics. So there's a lot of people that could be involved in sort of our greater community that is just here because of political reasons, not so much because they're silver stackers. So I would say probably half, conservatively, of the total Twitter or rather, Reddit sort of community, maybe. And that's even getting generous because of all the botting they did. It's a very hard question, and I hope through STC being around and apes hearing about of our existence, then over time we can actually accurately determine that statistic.
Yeah, it is a really tough thing to gauge. I mean, if I, was just going to guess, I would say round about 1 million. And of course, I don't have any good statistics to base that on. Although I do think you're right. There's a lot of people that I think would like to just kind of shake up the deep state, so to speak. And if they were to hear about this movement, they might go buy some Eagles just to take part in it.
Now, I would also say when you're talking about numbers, I would go off of percentages because, like we've all been preaching for a while now, there's almost no young people buying silver, and so if we're going off percentages, what would your guess be? Because I would say probably 75% boomers, and then the rest 20% millennials maybe, and then the 5% Zoomers, like around there, if even that high. That seems those numbers are probably too low on the boomer end.
That'd probably be pretty good guesstimation.
Yeah, I think that's a good guesstimation. I know as far as the analytics that I can see on my videos, it's a lot of boomers. I think some more Gen Xers are starting to wake up to it. But yeah, the young people are really kind of not on board yet, and I think a lot of that has to do with just lack of awareness. But
it's definitely a lack of awareness for sure. Because what happens when in 5 years when all those boomers retire or die, either one, that means there's only 25% of the demographic in the world buying, or at least let's say U.S. buying.
let's focus on the demographic of millennials or Zimmers right now. I feel like the economy is pressing that demographic the most, and there's not a lot of extra money to spend on such investments. So other people, these demographics tend to be very doomer for their future and not think about retirement in the same way as the older generations have in the past or still do. So that's a concern and sort of a mentality that we have to sort of break. What's really powerful, I think, just to talk, touch base on what you were saying a moment ago, Brian, where, people are getting sick and tired of the system. Examples being BlackRock, Vanguard, or State Street, who have basically a Triforce monopoly on people's pensions and 401ks. I think those people that are tired of that should take advantage of the fact that Silver Eagles are IRA eligible. They can pull out all of that, money out of their retirement, put it in silver, not take a tax hike, and basically take it out of the system and out of the pockets of these corporations they don't ideologically agree with and what they're trying to push.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do hope that the rumors that more women are starting to get into stacking are true. Even if we just got a lot of females from across all the generations, even if they're boomers, Gen Xers. I just saw a post in here that Gen X is the key, and there's a lot of female Gen Xers that have a lot of wealth that they could protect if they were to, look at silver. The nice thing about silver is it can't go to zero. It was used as money before gold. This is something, you might want to sit on for 10 or 20 years. A lot of times that's when people are going to see the best results if they invest in silver. And for the young people out there, I do see a lot of young people that are starting to build up fairly large gun collections. And so I know that these young guys are spending a lot of money on these guns. And, if they have that prepper mindset, they're getting their ammo, they're getting their guns. And then just if we can get the message out to them to have silver. So, we need something to trade amongst ourselves in case there ever is a SHTF situation. And a lot of the boomers and Gen Xers have always thought that constitutional silver is a great thing to have around. It's something you don't have to pay too much of a premium for in some cases.
No, I would agree in many respects that chum silver is just as powerful for that kind of hits the fan situation as equal to these American Silver Eagles, just because the back end liquidity on these type of products are very, very good. Like you're basically able to pay, get back what you paid for them in most respects. They keep their value, and like, maybe you get a bullion bar from your favorite influencer or person in this industry, and it has their branding or something, and it ain't going to be a collector's item, no matter what they tell you. And if you go back and selling it, unless you sell it privately to someone who's also a fan of this channel, it will have equal value to probably melt because somebody will buy it for the silver, but they're not going to buy it because they love that same YouTube channel at the end of the day. Whereas it's the complete opposite with American Silver Eagles, and I would say the second best example of this would be the maple. But where the Canadian mint is not beholden like the United States mint is beholden to laws. Maybe they are a little bit more future sighting on that than United States mint, but this is the option we got.
Yeah, the maples are great. They're highly trusted. It's a pretty liquid coin. Everybody here in North America is going to recognize those. A lot of the junk silver will come with a high premium. The advantage to it is it's fractional, and it's also something that every coin shop and every stacker is going to be familiar with.
Hmm.
And they're gonna look at whatever it is, Benjamin Franklin, Benji half dollar, Walking Liberty half, you name it. They're going to recognize it right away. They're not going to question if it's legit or not, and you'd be easily able to make your exchange for whatever it was you were trying to obtain.
Right, and
but yeah,
I think it says something important here is to mention, though, is the precedent of the Gold Confiscation Act. I'm in a rare boat of people that, more I dig into the history of the usage of silver, especially nuclear, and I'm going to put out a big due diligence dive into the nuclear uses of silver soon, but, that is silver that will never come back again. And due to the strategic nature of silver, I feel like, silver confiscation is really on the table, especially as the military is still at war with so many nations, and we're flattering to try and maintain the power that we're slowly losing to the BRICS nations at this point. That confiscation of silver is going to be on the table, and all I can use is for precedent on what they're going to do in this regard would be to go after the generic and the foreign currency. So American Silver Eagles, again, offer sort of a safe haven for that scenario because there's no precedent for them actually going after people's money.
The only reason they would go after the Silver Eagles, our own currency basically in the U.S., is if they were really out, like really desperate, like they needed everything. They want your cell phones, the old cell phones in your basement. They want everything. Like if that's the case, then there's probably some world-ending event happening anyway. But so I would say it's pretty safe.
Let me play devil's advocate for a second. Let me just play devil's advocate for a second. What if, the military-industrial complex, they're really smart. They have the smartest scientists, the smartest people in the whole world, and they're game theorying the human reaction to some stimuli that they put into the system, and the stimuli so happen to be, silver squeeze. And it inspired people to throw their money at the very end of the dollar, where they could be throwing them into wealth-preserving money that is recognized by the country that they're from, but instead they're throwing in generics or foreign currency, and the government is basically using its own population to silently drain the rest of the world of all the silver that they're going to then confiscate from people. Whereas the only ones that are going to be safe are the people that own the Silver Eagles, which is a very small subset, as you see by the fact that they keep minting less and less and less of them. What if that's part of, only the people that are willing to be able to pay that bluff of a premium are going to be able to maintain their wealth? That's an extreme scenario, but it's out there, it's in my head, and I can't ignore it.
Seems very feasible. It seems exactly what kind of crazy evil plan just might work.
Right? So it's something that, I've been throwing around in my brain.
I think it's highly achievable, and it's something where a lot of folks of the lower and middle class have already invested in silver. They're doing a lot with the paper markets to keep the price knocked down as much as possible. And what's happening when they do that? Big banks, J.P. Morgan, big investment groups like BlackRock, when the price goes down, they're onboarding a lot of silver. So we're talking about groups that are doing research, and they are collecting up a lot of this silver for a reason. If new people are coming in right now, it's a great time to take advantage of the pricing where it's at. When folks talk about mining, I read an article a few weeks ago, they think they're probably paying somewhere between $17 and $18 to mine the silver, to refine it, to get it shaped and put on the shelves. And so the profit margins are getting really low. A lot of companies have quit mining silver. This is just something when they come across it and they're mining another metal is when they'll put it up for sale. And once if we were to squeeze them in, if this happened, it's going to take them a while to get everything going again. I mean, it could be years. The Sunshine Mint is not mining. They have their spot in the supply chain, and they're going to have to rely on the mining companies to be able to provide them with the demand that they're seeing. So this is something, if we break this, it might take it a few years to get repaired, and hopefully the true value of silver will be shown, and all of these wonderful people who have invested in the poor man's gold will be able to reap the benefits.
Well, here, I'll say this, because, and just hope that this particular bullion company in Europe is okay with it. I received a message from one of the major players in Europe that ships out bullion to every one of the European states. And they were telling me that for next month, July, the U.S. Mint is not providing them pricing, and they're not providing them any allocation. So it's a big red flag there. And I kept wondering to myself all day from that little bit of factoid if the U.S. government is wising up that they don't want to be giving out their silver to Europe.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if that's the case. And then when you look at what's going on overseas, China has been making a lot of big purchases. India has been making a lot of big purchases. For folks who might be listening to this in the future who aren't too aware of what's going on in the precious metals hemisphere, so to speak, they're expecting on August 22nd that the BRICS nations are going to announce currency that they hope will be able to rival the dollar. And the rumors are that they're considering having it backed by gold, which of course would drive the price of gold up, and silver would follow right along with it.
Would it? Because I don't have any inclination of why the military-industrial complex of the government, if they're incentivized to keep this price low, because silver isn't everything consumeristic or military application, even floating up in space right now, they're not going to unrig the price because, just because the dollar collapses. It's worldwide. You think Russia, it wants to raise the price, even though, yes, it increases their wealth of the country? No, they want to keep it suppressed so they can drain it out of the stupid countries that don't understand the true value of their silver for military application, or just don't have the feasibility to refine it or make those weapons. And then they'll give it to Russia, give it to North Korea, give it to America, we're the world's largest arms dealer, and we'll just make the weapons for them for their silver. It's just like silver is just like the most crucial thing to a war and energy that I could possibly find. Just imagine how much silver went into the Great Hadron Collider that's 27 miles long, that requires the finest tuned instruments, the best electrical signals. Of course, there's tons of silver in it, but I've never seen the receipt on that, or it being factored into the world survey of silver that's probably not coming back on the market for a very, very, very long time unless they dismantle this thing.
Well, I do think it's likely that it would. And the reason being, as you had mentioned, inflation, our perception would definitely be that the price is going up as the dollar was losing purchasing power. But also, they can do quite a bit with the spot price. Oftentimes, kind of like when the Silicon Valley Bank collapsed, there was a bump in the precious metals prices that coincided with that. And that probably wasn't a coincidence, because people will panic. They'll get scared and they'll decide to move towards the safe haven assets. And I do think that the dealers and the coin shops, in response to that, would raise their premiums. And so I do feel like the price that you pay would be going up, and also the price you could potentially sell at would be going up as well.
Maybe in the short term, but again, if a scenario comes about where there's silver confiscation like gold, you run into a scenario where the only outlet to sell that is black market. at a private sale in a shady alley or with your best buddy on the down low, and hopefully no one, snitches. But that's not really a practical solution.
And that's going to be a super felony if you're caught doing it. Yeah, so you'll be.
They'll just take it all away, and they'll put you in a box. They re-educate you that silver's worthless.
I'm sure that they would like to do things like that, kind of like the camps that China has set up for the Uyghurs. But yeah,
it's definitely concerning because if they install a central bank digital currency, then political dissent is going to be at the cost of your wallet, at your finances, your ability to pay your bills, and I wouldn't put it past the thought of re-education camps at that point.
In regards to confiscation, if someone was to go buy it from their local coin shop and pay cash, I do think at that point, as far as, whether it's the IRS or whoever, the powers that be, it kind of just disappears off their scope.
Well,
go ahead.
I mean, it's not really, that's not the issue. I mean, even if you bought it with your credit card and did any of that, the way I see this unfolding, if a confiscation issue does happen, which probably will at some point, with the shortages that we're seeing, the way they would do it, it's easy. They don't have to go door to door. They don't have to do any of that. They just have to make the laws that say, if you're caught trading this, then you get a felony, you go to jail, whatever, or you just get fined an incredible amount of money for that. So what they're going to do is they're going to offer to buy it the way they did back in the day with gold, and they're going to give you a juicy premium on it, and they're going to buy it all up, and then they're going to raise that, whatever they gave you, they're going to raise it like double right after, the same way they did it back in the past with gold. And it's going to be easy for them to do. They're not going to track down anything. So if you just have it in your possession, then we're going to be in that situation where we're going to have to wait, like, what was it, 30, 40 years before gold was legal again to use. And since there's way more gold than silver, we'll probably our children's children will never reach that opportunity to actually dig everything out of your backyard or your little moat that you have outside and actually use it again as a currency, because it's going to always be illegal at that point. Your generic rounds, all that will always be illegal after that.
I think that's a good hypothetical way that they might do it. Of course, they'd have to run all that stuff through the legal system. So maybe if we wanted to curtail that, we could try and get some of the lawmakers to invest in some silver. And then hopefully they wouldn't support something like that.
I just saw a question in the chat I want to get you from CJ before it gets lost in the sea of our conversation, which is, the concern on the premiums being higher. I'm already seeing them, and you can tell, your perspective, about them, Brian, but I've already seen the premiums on the Eagles come lower. I don't think it's a coincidence that right after the fact that we launched this campaign, we start seeing the premiums come lower. And I think they will start coming lower as the demand surges. However, there may become a point where the only retailer that actually has Eagles is Apnex, and they are basically draining H in order for us to drain those Eagles. I could see a scenario like that occur, but I want to warn anybody that is listening from these bullion dealers that we will meme the idea that the last dealer standing will be forever boycotted and labeled as no better than the government itself. So I think that should be enough to hopefully light some fires. Because if, they take the example of what happened to Budweiser when you mess with public opinion as the precedent, they could be as bad or worse than that, because we're even dealing with people's wallets here.
Well, this is a smaller industry too, so if you get that many people boycotting one company because they were greedy enough to keep their premiums as high as they were when they know they're making triple or 4x whatever it is they're paying for it, then yeah, that's even more impactful than the Budweiser situation.
Now, we parted with Andy. Some people in the community have been a little bit split around that. Let me tell you, everyone that's listening, Andy is offering $9.99 premium right now on the Eagles. And that's a very competitively compared to everybody else in the landscape, and people hate on him for it. So there's other people that offer lower, but you got to buy huge amounts in quantity to get that price. So Andy offers like the quantity price for the common Joe, which is pretty darn nice, and he gets a lot of fun for it. I didn't even understand truly what what I was unleashing with by getting Andy behind this campaign. But we did it strategically. It wasn't him coming to us like, hey, sell some Eagles. Everywhere we were going and talking to people about Eagles prior to launching this campaign, they're like, are you crazy? We don't want to. We don't. None of that. It's like we're basically telling people to buy the one thing that everybody's telling you not to buy. And I like to do things that people tell me, or most people tell me not to do. So I think that's usually the right thing to do, other than murder and rape and obviously those things. But in terms of authority coming down, I'll just say, don't look this way. You should probably look that way.
Well, yeah, and I would say Andy's the only one that actually listened to us when we talked, so which is pretty crazy. No one else stepped up, if publicly at least. There's a lot of people that would give a thumbs up or a happy face here and there in DMs, but no one actually stood up to actually support the SDC movement and the Drain the Mint idea, except Andy. So I mean, I'm extremely grateful for that and happy to have him on board.
Even though Andy's not listed as an authorized participant, he's still able to call the Mint up as an authorized participant. They just don't list them all. He's a small guy and get allocation directly from the Mint. Another aspect of all of the premiums being as high as they were is a product of the Mint not meeting demand for the bullion company. So there's also a long layup time for when they order it and when they receive the product, that they have to price in the market volatility into these products. And so it's really amazing to see all the Eagles going on, lower and lower premiums given the price volatility over the last couple months. So, they really believe that eights can drain and make sure that they don't hold these on the books for very long in order to get these prices down. So the more we drain, the less risk is involved with the bullion dealers, the lower the premiums can be.
Right, absolutely. I think you're right. That price action is exactly as you described. And so much respect for Andy for being involved in this. And if anyone's listening to this who's not aware, you can just hop right on to Reddit, go to the Silver Degen Club subreddit. You'll see a Drain the Mint contest on there. And all you have to do is just post your invoice from purchasing 2023 Silver Eagles. It could be from Miles Franklin, with Andy Scheckman, the gentleman that they're speaking about. It could be, from another seller. And if
anybody, you get an entry. But if you do buy from our sponsor, it does really help out the community, so that we actually have a budget to get this awareness in this campaign out and have legs. And he'll give you a competitive price, and he'll help out the community if you buy from him. And we give you 3 entries into the contest.
Heck yeah. And he also donated, is it all of the Eagles or a portion of them?
All the Eagles come from him, a tube of Eagles. He's really taking a chance on our community, and we hope to have this relationship grow so, he's feel comfortable to offer more and bigger prizes over time. But, he's offering a tube of, 20 Eagles this time, and I think the next prize is going to be bigger, and we're going to suck Andy for prizes along the way.
Heck yeah, I'd much appreciated. So if you were to, there's going to be 4. When winners, first would get 10, second would get 5, third would get 3, and fourth would get 2. So you guys, please take advantage of that contest and help out the movement.
And for the love of God, when you order, please put in apes, degen, or drain the mint in the subject line so we get credit for that.
Yes, that would be really, really nice of you. But again, just buy eagles from any source. This is really just about the mission. It was just an extra bonus thing that we could use to promote this campaign with this contest. But the real thing is if you can find eagles at a cheaper location, buy them. But if you do want to support the community, and Andy is a competitive price from, what you've been able to find, go with Andy, and we really appreciate your support.
Heck yeah. So I'm just going to take a quick scroll through here. If there is anybody in the chat who has any questions, feel free and type them out. I'm just going to see if there's anything we didn't address.
Yeah, if you have doubts and you can form a question around that feeling of doubt and, present it, I want to hear it. I'm working on another due diligence piece of all these flood questions and the rebuttals I have that I've been trying to, over time, work through the comments and answer them. It's not efficient, so I'd rather just come out with a document where it answers all at the same time and eases the 8 concerns, because I've personally gained theory to all the conclusions to this idea personally, and I've talked to the mods, and we've thought about all the ins and outs of everything. So maybe if there's something that we haven't thought about, I want to hear it now. If we can do our reverse or it audible, but basically I feel like if you have doubts, let's hear them, and let's make sure that we're on the right track with this.
Yeah, Yodi brought up a good point. The special coins, the coins that we should avoid. There was 2, right?
Right. So basically, you don't want to buy platinum coins or gold coins from the mint. We want to only focus on the American Silver Eagles, and we're not, although it's a campaign of draining the mint, this weird world we live in that you can't really get the mass-produced eagles directly from the mint. They use these things called authorized participants, basic wholesalers that they allocate their coins out to because they think, well, basically, they don't want to deal with the massive amount of shipping and regional logistical problems of getting this out to the whole world. So they make sure to partner with these reputable companies that, they'll allocate these metals for them themselves. So you're going to go through resellers. Just get the normal 2023 Eagles, well, notch in it. If it has a box and has a certificate, avoid it, because these coins don't even apply to the same laws that we're trying to force the government to follow.
Yeah, and Aaron Hershey had mentioned people just don't want to believe everything is as fragile as it actually is. It's a very good point. The fiat currencies are, of course, are a ticking time bomb. All fiat currencies historically have eventually gone to 0. And
that's true. So if you know this, and you know that your fiat is basically burning metaphorically in your pocket, why does it matter how much of it that you spend on these American Silver Eagles? I mean, yeah, you can get two of generics, but I feel like to have a good game plan or an oh crap bag of silver, you're going to want to diversify that bag to, maybe foreign currencies, American currencies, and generics, just because you want to cover all scenarios.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's something that, once this whole thing's over and you have your Eagles, that'll kind of be your little trophy. You took part in this event. You were part of this movement.
Oh, yeah, definitely, because there is a low mintage year. I can guarantee you that based on the projections. It's one of the lowest mintage years that will ever be on record. And if we are correct in our assumptions about the scarcity of silver and how this is all going to go, it may be the last.
Do you want to get into any of the people that are saying that there is no shortage? There's a lot of influencers out there that are saying that there's no shortage at all. There's plenty.
Well, I can only
Sure.
point to the countless wars that have occurred since the end of World War II, when America basically became the dominant empire in the world, and then supplied all these weapons of war to other countries, and then the other countries feeling threatened by America's power, and then building up their own arsenal. And all these arsenals post the 40s were a majority of them using silver zinc batteries, silver oxide batteries, magnesium silver batteries. These are the gold standard, or in my case, silver standard things, superiority of product. You know, if you historically, let me put the context that ever since lithium-ion batteries became a thing, the government has only ever used them for testing purposes because you can't store lithium long-term without being able to charge it up before you use it, and that just means it's not a battle-ready kind of product. So, you know, you want a silver, say it's a torpedo, you're using a magnesium silver battery. That very battery is activated by the salt water, the electrolytes in the salt water itself. So until it reaches the salt water, it's inert and has an indefinite shelf life.
Right, and then
You know, why would you?
Go ahead.
You know, I would say, why would you replace this? You know, with silver. There was a document that I sourced about the budget report that really blew up in a lot of social media places, where it said that for the new budget they're replacing all their sono buoys with lithium batteries, and I can't help but think, well, of course these things have historically been disposable. So how many solar buoys were made previous to this year were probably all made of silver batteries, which is another concern since these things are disposable. They're probably sitting at the bottom of the ocean at this point, never to be seen again. But the fact that we're replacing them with lithium-ion batteries now it just maddens me, because if you take your battery out of your phone, if it's a replaceable foot, I know those are becoming rarer and rarer these days, but just say you had a battery, you took all the protected rubber off of it, and you placed it in a bowl of water, it would immediately flare up and kind of explode, depending on how much lithium was there. It's just lithium plus water equals bad time, and the Navy wants to replace their buoys with these type of batteries. It's maddening to me when they were already using the superior product. So to replace that superior product with a explosive inferior product makes me think that the level of scarcity going on with the silver is worse and more grim, the equivalency of like a meteor hitting the planet and the government knowing that it would cause mass hysteria, so they don't tell anybody until they're all crushed and dead.
Right, and then also they don't have to worry about as much competition as as they're trying to get it for their own uses. And then outside of the military, the Department of Defense, you're also looking at all their contractors. You know, whether it's Lockheed Martin, McDonnell Douglas, they're going to need to have some pretty good stockpiles of silver around when they're creating these things. And then
they did at one point with the national stockpile. We had 165 million ounces of silver in 1968, and by the course of time leading to 2002, that was all depleted. And the military has just been maintaining that low price point by cannibalizing what they could through recycle programs of taking derelict or unneeded or old military equipment and munitions and refining them back to the base materials in order to fund these new projects. So it's a very interesting situation when you think of the government in the background always mitigating their need for silver by cannibalizing themselves so that they don't have to take the supposedly very abundant material from the open market.
Well, and that's probably going to have to be pretty much standard operating procedure for them from this point forward. Just because it's not going to come back quick enough. When you look at, or possibly at all, when you look at the solar panel industry, the Go Green initiative, and the electric car industry. I mean, the demand of those two industries alone is really going to be creating a supply deficit. And then when you compound that with the Department of Defense, with the foreign militaries, we are looking at a shortage. And, it might not be that apparent right now, but my guess would be within, 4 to 5 years, it's going to be very apparent.
I think what they would like to see, I'll just say what they would like to see, is that, this whole thing stay very quiet, that the same people that are currently stacking continue, because, it's still a small subset. Maybe because nothing is happening in the market, they can shake people out of their positions because they're tired of waiting for some sort of moonshot kind of event. And this thing is just going to continue. So say if we didn't exist, this thing would just continue to its inevitable conclusion, where eventually the industry, the military, would have to sit down and think to themselves, okay, so we're running out of silver here. Where are we going to get it from? And then some asshat is going to stand up, be like, oh, well, we took gold a long time ago. We can just take it from everyone else, and then we can do this whole World Economic Forum initiative of making everybody rent their Xboxes and cars and computers, and we'll just control the amount of stuff that gets created, so that we can ensure that military needs for this material is always satisfied in order to maintain control of our various populations, depending on which government is having this conversation.
Yeah, I am hoping we don't have to deal with a confiscation situation, and so just trying to kind of create that reality when I speak about it. But definitely, you guys have a lot of solid
if
points
we
in
didn't
regards to
exist,
that.
Brian. If we didn't exist, Brian, and how do you see the end game playing out?
Well, if we didn't exist, I'm not sure exactly how many people out there are like in-game investors in the precious metals, if that's what you mean by that. But I do think that at some point in-game, once the dollar hyperinflates, and it's no longer functioning as money, it's not something that you'll be able to exchange for food, water, any other goods and services, is when the value of the precious metals would really come into play. In that scenario, things will be difficult. Well, just to finish my thought, if you have a cup of coffee, well, right now we're we all know what a cup of coffee is. We say, how much would you expect to pay for a cup of coffee? Maybe it's $2 or something like that. What is the equivalent of that going to be in silver? A gram of silver, half a gram of silver. And so in the end game, it's not really going to be related to any of our current fiat prices, and it will be something that has a huge purchasing power for a while until something else comes into place, whatever that medium of exchange is.
You got to get that CBDC out and get us all on it.
Cause the problem to offer your solution. Now, I've always been in agreement. That's pretty much the ebb and flow of the world, at least the major changes that have occurred since World War II. You cause a problem, you offer your specific solution. But at a time, if that scenario does proceed to its epic conclusion of we're all poor, we're begging for food, and then the government comes out and says, hey, we thought we made this, and we'll give everybody a UPI, and if you accept this currency and just use this going forward, but there's caveats of tyranny, but don't worry about it. Feel like you run into the trouble of where, once that's installed, you'll never be able to get to price discovery because of all the reasons why we're here today with a rigged market. That the reasons aren't going away, just because the currency is changing. So we got to take control of that.
And yeah, the scary thing is that probably is something that they've thought about. And it is something people in a desperate situation, you know, they would go. They would say, okay, I'm willing to lose some rights to get this.
Oh, dude, the majority of people. Like, I'm a true doomer. So, with slight optimism now because of IA and this movement. But I always default to doomers. So I think the majority of people, you think of everyone working 9 to 5, 2 times a day. They're working so many jobs, trying to just stay alive. I think the majority of people are going to be crying for that. They're going to be crying for the UBI. They're going to be crying for the CBDC. They're gonna want it because they're gonna see it as the only thing that can actually keep them alive at that moment, not knowing the risk that's gonna come later.
And what if this caveat to be made whole is you have to surrender your ability to own private property?
Definitely happen.
They would probably do it. I mean, they would probably get a tattoo on themselves, you know, if they were feeling desperate enough.
I mean, you just got to look at whatever every other country is doing right now. That's what is achievable. Even it doesn't matter how crazy that country is. Like it always opens the door.
Is money wealth, or is it somebody's property?
They gotta take away that property then.
They could take away your generics. They could take away your foreign currency because it's not recognized as money, you know, or wealth.
Yeah, that's what's kind of cool about like custom pours, like statues and stuff like that, and like jewelry. It's possible jewelry. Yeah, it's all art. So, I mean, that's why when you go on a long trip or no, whenever anyone was fleeing a country somewhere, they would just have like an insane amount of jewelry that they would wear because they're not going to even look at that. They don't even care about that. They're just going to look to see what else you have.
Well,
yeah, and they think about it.
I was just say there's a comment in chat I was just going to quickly respond to. Yodi says you got to factor in the BRICS. I can only factor in the BRICS to be opposition to the dollar. Sure, it's going to challenge the faith-based situation of that, but BRICS is basically working on a cryptocurrency, and the idea behind that is you have to trust or have faith that it's somehow backed by gold. You know, for the longest time they said that Fort Knox had gold, and that was just basically made on faith until somebody came along and said, or provided some evidence to suggest that this may not be the case. I just see that as a similar scenario for whatever central bank digital currency here is going to be backed by. It's probably going to be on par with whatever BRICS is doing. So it'll be a one-to-one. You know, they're not going to do a weaker product, obviously. They're going to, I would think, try to make whatever they're making seem logical to a normie. If you have one entity that has a gold backing and yours is backed by feathers and hope, that normie is going to be able to at least see through that.
Yeah, they think almost 50% of all gold has been used, you know, that was recovered has been used to make jewelry. So there's a lot of it floating around out there in that form. And I think that's a great point, DMM. That's something people might not be as keen on, you know, if you were trying to discreetly move around with it. Another rumor with the BRICS is they're thinking about backing it partially by oil. You know, I'm not sure what kind of figure they'll come up with, you know, if they're going to say, you know, this is 5% backed by gold or whatever it might be. But that is something that is concerning. Like IA had pointed out, this is something that, you know, you probably shouldn't put too much faith in. Whatever they're saying, there's a high likelihood it could be less.
Very true. I mean, you have to use the precedent of the past and mirror it and pay attention to what you do know. And what I do know is there's a large push for central bank digital currency. they wouldn't be pushing for this if there wasn't some ultimate conclusion of how they were going to install it. They've been game theorying this for a very long time. People like to make a big deal about cryptocurrency, but those are the people that fail to recognize the history of Bitcoin in itself is not the first of its kind. There was a thing called BitGolds that was in the 1999, early 2000s, but, got overshadowed, by the mainstream because no one understood the technology at the time. But it was actually using gold to back this cryptocurrency rather than with Bitcoin being its faith, and that's why the terminology mining still stuck around is, because those that created this technology, I perceive DARPA by my research, but, we're just continuing on this sort of idea at the right time, which was the financial crisis of 2008. They knew that what they were doing was putting Band-Aids on the situation with the bailout. So they introduced these various psyops, knowing that eventually the system's going to fail. But it would be good to have all these people throwing their fiat in useless directions so that it didn't matter were in opposition to what they really wanted to roll out.
Yeah, that's a great point. It makes sense. They've been game theorying this for a long time, and they probably do have a pretty detailed plan line out on how they think this is going to go. So I'm thinking I'm going to wrap it up here pretty quick. Did either of you guys have any closing thoughts you wanted to share?
Just that, Drain the Mint is a combination, at least for me, even before I got into partying and creating STC with DMM, it's a combination of a lot of research I've been following, so the military, the scientific elite, for a very long time, and everything that I've ever came across points to silver being a very needed asset for both the future of green energy, where we have been for the last 100 years, and military aspects of it are just, if you really sit back and think about how many proxy wars, how many bombs have gone off, not just by the America, but worldwide governments all over that have fought their own separate conflicts and used either American arms, munitions, bombs, torpedoes, or other countries that either nicked their plans or realized that, like every other country, that silver batteries and other silver electronic components were the advantage, to the arms race that has proliferated ever since we dropped the nuclear bomb, which, by the way, a lot of silver went into the production of nuclear bombs as well, and still do, if not for the proliferation.
Let's touch on that real quick. What is the estimate per bomb?
So it varies per bomb. I've so far looked up a couple. The one that's already public in due diligence that people can look up, that they look up my username, is regarding the Patriot missile, which is an intercontinental ballistic missile, and it uses 24,000 pounds roughly per bomb. There's about 50 that were made per that design. So they're either just sitting around in warehouses somewhere. Maybe they were decommissioned with the proliferation by Reagan's initiative to downgrade the amount of nuclear weapons that we were stockpiling thanks to the Cold War. But there's still a lot of them that just sit in silos that, there's a lot just sitting around that aren't moving because, we have to have military readiness for doomsday.
And 24,000 is a serious number. So they're definitely using a lot when they're making these. DMN, do you have any closing thoughts you'd like to share with us?
Oh yeah, just thanks for everyone that jumped into the chat. Yodi, CJ, ICWW, Aaron got in here. John Little, the pickaxe he was playing around. Go check out his article. We're not going to stop making stuff, guys. We're going to get all the younger generations to join the Silver Revolution, and now hashtag Drain the Mint. Tag it, guys, on your Twitters and your socials. I also have a little treat for you guys. If you haven't noticed, I've been dropping Easter eggs and hints. But if you type in if you're on the Reddit and you're gonna leave a comment and you're searching for a GIF, go ahead and type in Drain the Mint or Silver Squeeze or Silver Degen Club, and you will see a bunch of GIFs that are all ours for the SDC community to play around with. And I'll be adding way more to that going forward. And so yeah, we're at the top of that list whenever you guys type in those keywords. Drain the Mint, Silver Squeeze, Silver Degen, right there, man.
Hey, you guys, thanks so much for joining me tonight. I really appreciate both of you. Thanks for everybody who tuned into the chat. And I do look forward to seeing you guys on the next video. And I look forward to speaking with the two of you in the future.
Cool. Thank you, Brian. Thanks for having us. And drain them in, everyone.
Drain the Mint, guys. Do it. Stay Degen.
Drain the Mint. Keep stacking. Have a great night, everyone.